Welcome to Snacks Weekly on Data Science. This podcast is all about making data science and machine learning knowledge accessible and less intimidating. Today, we are going to talk about forecasting. This topic is based on a tech blog with the title Forecasting at Meta, Balancing Art and Science, written by the data science team at Meta Platform Incorporation. You can find the blog link in this episode's description. Throughout this episode, we will dissect the topic from both business and data science angles. Now, let's dive in. On the business side, let's take a look at the problem to be solved. Forecasting is the process of predicting future events or trends based on past data and associated information. It involves using statistical methods, machine learning models, and data analysis techniques to anticipate future outcomes. These predictions typically rely on historical data, current trends, and assumptions about future conditions. Forecasting is widely used in various fields, such as finance, economics, marketing, and operational management. The goal of forecasting is usually to make informed decisions about future plans and strategies. In technology companies, forecasting methods have several common applications. One example is sales and revenue forecasting, which predicts future sales and revenue based on historical data and market trends. This type of forecasting helps project a company's financial performance and health. Another common use case is product demand forecasting, where a company estimates future demand for products or services based on factors such as seasonality and consumer behavior. These forecasts allow the company to make better product planning decisions for future cycles. Forecasting is often considered both a science and an art. As a science, it requires advanced modeling and optimization methods, and modern forecasting algorithms can identify complex patterns and reduce human biases involved. On the other side, it also requires deep domain knowledge that can't easily be encoded into a model. In some cases, domain experts is the only reliable source of information, especially when many unknowns are involved. Balancing the science and art of forecasting is challenging. Over-reliance on the scientific aspects can result in forecasts that differ from customer expectation and making it difficult to be adopted. Well, if it's too much reliance on the artistic aspects, that could lead to a biased or subjective opinion from experts. Striking the right balance between these components is essential to achieve accurate and useful forecasts. Now that we've understood the business context and the challenges involved in forecasting, let's dive into the technical side to see how the data science team at Meta balances the art and the science. There are two key aspects to achieve the right balance in forecasting: validation of the forecast and incorporating product impacts into the forecasting methodology. Let's examine each aspect in details. First, let's look at the validation part. Validation assesses the quality of a forecast. Typically, the future is not yet played out when we need to validate our forecasting performance. And even when it does, we have a limited sample size. For example, If we want to forecast Facebook's daily active user for next year, there is no data for the future period yet. This requires a combination of approaches to determine if we have a good forecast. Measuring the difference between reality and the forecast is quite intuitive, and we can leverage backtesting technology to compare against past data. With this approach, there are a few components to consider. One component is about choosing the right error metrics. There is a wide array of error metrics in time series modeling, each with their respective pros and cons. Examples can include the mean absolute error and root mean square errors. Those two are very commonly seen. Some other metrics are easier to interpret because they are on a similar scale to the original data, while other metrics are less sensitive to outliers, making them more robust. It's crucial to choose the metrics that fairly represent the forecasting objective for the right use case. So, thinking about the right error metrics, the science part involves having the metrics set, and the art part involves selecting the right one to use. The second component here is about selecting the representative test periods. This usually requires a lot of human judgment. It is preferable to exclude unique instances and focus on representative periods. For instance, when the pandemic first hit in 2020, user behaviors changed dramatically, so it would be reasonable to exclude that period from backtesting. It is also important to match the forecasting aggregation to the business needs. For instance, if forecasting is about predicting product sales, a higher error weights for the high volume products would be more suitable than considering all products being equal. The science part here in the backtesting period involves applying backtesting as technology to generate the training and the validation datasets, while the art side involves designing the right blackout dates and selecting reasonable periods. The third component is about incorporating expert opinions. It is generally good to seek expert opinions for three things: understanding the right business use case to ensure the methodology answers the right questions, accounting for reasonable assumptions involved in forecasting, and to check whether the overall forecast is reasonable. Herein, the term reasonable can be subjective, but it is not unexpected that a forecast suddenly triple sales without a clear business rationale could be raising concerns from its fidelity. The science here about incorporating expert opinion is about how to codify those criteria for automation. And the art side involves to identify the criteria to be incorporated. By addressing these three components, using the right error metrics, selecting representative backtest period, and incorporate expert opinions, the forecast validation would become more reliable and trustworthy. After discussing the validation aspects of balancing art and science in forecasting, another crucial aspect involves incorporating product impacts. Many forecasting use cases at Meta differ from the weather forecasting style. By saying weather forecasting style, this focuses on understanding historical patterns and directly use them for future projections. While inside Meta, it often deals with new product launches or planned improvements. Those need to be factored into the forecast to make it more accurately reflect the upcoming reality. For instance, if a significant product launch is planned for the upcoming quarter, this would likely lead to much higher user engagement metrics in future periods than what would be forecasted based solely on historical data. Therefore, it is crucial to carefully assess these product impacts and integrate them into the forecast. Here are a few considerations involved. Defining the right inclusion criteria is important. It's crucial to establish clear inclusion criteria to provide a systematic logic for how to proceed with the forecast and increase transparency in the forecasting methodology. Typically, only high confidence estimates are included, while those with high uncertainty and unclear product benefits are excluded from the forecast. Integrating holdout experiments is another essential step. These holdout experiments help to quantify the confidence in a product change's impacts on those desirable metrics. For example, if a holdout experiment shows that a product feature will increase user engagement by 10%, it is much more quantitative and reasonable to incorporate this impact magnitude along with this rollout timeline into the forecast for future engagement metrics. After we identify those high confidence cases, adjusting those cases is necessary. The team can either make adjustment from a top-down approach, meaning adding the expected impacts of those new products to previous forecasting results, or they may need to modify the training data to remove those past product impacts if a product historically caused some disruptions. Both approaches are reasonable for those high confidence cases. Well, for those low confidence cases, handling those require careful consideration. For cases where the timing or magnitude of the impacts is unclear, inclusion or not depends on specific forecasting needs. For instance, if the forecast concerns end-of-the-year sales, and the launch will happen sometimes during the year, it would still be reasonable to include such low confidence cases. However, if the purpose to make a weekly sales forecast, where the precision is more important, it would be more reasonable to exclude those cases. By considering these components, defining inclusion criteria, integrating holdout experiments, adjusting for high confidence use cases, and handling low confidence cases appropriately. These are the ways to effectively incorporate product impacts into its forecasting methodology. Now we discussed both the business problem and technical solutions. Let's wrap it up. In this episode, we discussed the intricacy of balancing both the art and science aspects in forecasting. We explored this through two key aspects: validation of forecasting result and integrating product impact into forecasting, where combining the art and science can be crucial to enhance forecasting performance. If you enjoy the content of the episode, please subscribe to the channel, give me a 5-star review, and leave a comment. Your feedback is very appreciated, and I'll see you next week.